I was on a school trip in New York City when I suddenly started to feel dizzy and nauseous. And next thing I knew, I woke up on the floor and they found, as the doctor put it, we found a large mass above your left ear in your temporal lobe. It was so large, it was bigger than a golf ball. So they show me a banana and they say, "What is this?" And I'm thinking to myself, do you think I'm an idiot? I don't know what a banana is? Like, what kind of question is this? So I say, it's the banana. I can't say the word banana. I can't speak. I say, and I'm shocked by what just came out of my mouth. Imagine living your whole life that way.
Oh,
It
man.
was eye-opening, and it really humbled me. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though I would never want to go through it ever again.
Chris Mirabile is the founder and CEO of Novos, a company advancing evidence-based solutions to slow biological aging. His passion for longevity began after surviving a brain tumor at 16, an experience that revealed how little practical guidance existed for improving long-term health. Since then, he has focused on research and data-driven interventions, reportedly achieving a 37% slower pace of aging based on epigenetic, metabolomic, and physiological markers. Chris collaborates with leading longevity researchers, speaks at institutions including Harvard University and Stanford University, and is recognized as one of the leading voices in wellness and longevity. His work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal Forbes and the documentary Longevity Hackers.
Yeah, you better. Cause you want this, I want this. Everybody in this, what should have it? Stop illusions, it's in your hands. Show yourself, reveal it to them. Yeah, you better. Take the time to recognize it. You won't leave me even if you tried it. You're the artist, I'm the mess, and happily we found the new in your hands.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Unlimited with Elisabeth Carson. Today, I am joined by the fantastic Chris Mirabile. Did I say it right?
Mirabile. You got it. You got it this time after the 12th attempt.
Mirabile. No,
Yes.
Look, because I'm so glad we talked about it, guys, right before we jumped on here, and I had it all the way wrong. So I'm so glad that I asked you. But thank you so much, Chris, for being here with me today. And I was reading your bio. We had our talk, and you have a fantastic story. So can we start there? Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and what the experience that you had that led you down this path?
Sure. Happy to. So my interest in health, it started at a very early age. When I was just 12 years old, I saw Men's Health magazine at the bookstore, and I was inspired by the the guys in shape in that magazine, and decided I wanted to start exercising and lifting weights and eating healthy, or at least what they said back then was healthy, which was a low-fat diet. And fast forward a few more years after I was in good shape in weightlifting and building muscle, I was on a school trip in New York City when I suddenly started to feel dizzy and nauseous. And next thing I knew, I woke up on the floor and I had blood all over my shirt. And it turned out that I had just had a seizure, and I had severed my tongue during that seizure. And that's why I was bleeding. And they had to rush me to the emergency room, and I had to wait for my parents to make their way into the city for them to then do testing on me. And they gave me a CAT scan, and they found, as the doctor put it, we found a large mass above your left ear in your temporal lobe.
Freaking
We believe you
temporal.
have a brain tumor.
Oh,
And
man, you had a temporal tumor and you didn't have any signs of like aggression or anything like that? Wow.
nothing. There was not a single symptom until the moment I had a seizure. And then it was so large, it was bigger than a golf ball, that they had to do immediate surgery. They wanted to do it the same day. We ended up waiting 3 days because a very well-known neurosurgeon was coming back from operating on someone in the Middle East, was flying back to New York. And we waited until Monday for him to do the operation. But otherwise, they wanted to do it the same day.
Wow. So what was the risk? Was it like going to burst or something? Like what was going to happen? What were they afraid of?
Well, I mean, obviously, it was bumping up against my brain to the point that it caused the seizure in the first place. But it was also in a region that is close to my sensory perceptions and my speech and language center of my brain and my memory. So they actually did a series of tests on me where they, it's actually a little bit funny in hindsight. So they wheel me into a room, and I'm in my hospital gown. I was raised as a conservative Catholic Italian American boy in New York, and so the thought of somebody telling me to disrobe, a woman nonetheless telling me to disrobe at a hospital, it's like I must have had a look of terror on my face, because the nurse was like, "Oh, they didn't tell you?" When she asked me to take my gown off, I was like, "No, they didn't tell me anything." She's like, "Oh, I have to shave you between your legs." I was like, I probably looked even more horrified at that point. And she's like, "Oh, they really didn't tell you anything?" I was like, "No, they didn't tell me." She's like, "We have to shave you there because we're going to send a tube up your artery to your brain from your groin."
Oh my God.
And yeah, and we're going to send a chemical through that's going to turn off different regions of your brain. And this is testing so we know what is at risk here in terms of for the operation, and so that when we do follow-up studies, we can be very, mindful of these things. So there is a point where they send it through and they shut off my speech, but I don't know what they've done. So they show me a banana and they say, "What is this?" And I'm thinking to myself, do you think I'm an idiot? I don't know what a banana is. Like, what kind of question is this? So I say, "It's the banana." I can't say the word banana. I can't speak. I say, and I'm shocked by what just came out of my mouth. And then I try again and again, and they see the frustration on my face, and they say, "Calm down, Chris, calm down. We just turned off your speech portion of your brain. Everything's okay. It's going to restore in just 20 minutes. Just close your eyes. It's okay." But we went through multiple processes. There was another point where I couldn't see. And so just imagine going through that experience for a 16-year-old boy.
That's terrifying.
It was terrifying, but it was also eye-opening afterwards, in hindsight, where I came to, for the first time, I always did well in school. I didn't have any distinct disabilities, let's say. And then to lose my ability to talk, for even just 20 minutes, experiencing that. Imagine living your whole life that way.
Oh, man.
It was eye-opening, and it really humbled me and helped me as a young man to empathize better with people and understand the difficulty and how fortunate I am to have my faculties, to not have an issue like that. So it was the whole experience overall. That's just one example of it, but the whole experience of having a brain tumor, really, I see it as a blessing in disguise. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though I would never want to go through it ever again.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you're one of the very few people that have had contrast between, seeing what the brain is capable of and how important it is, and how much that it affects people. This is something that I talk about because, I mean, a lot of the time, in my opinion, just from the people I've talked to, interviewed, and done research on, is that sometimes people's behaviors, I mean, I would say even 90% of people's behaviors, I mean, it's like a hardware issue, like a hardware problem with the brain, blood flow issue. Maybe there's a tumor. Maybe they've gotten hit in the head, TBI. I mean, I like to show people, sometimes it's not like a moral failure on your part. If you're impulsive or if you act certain ways, maybe it could be a hardware problem in your brain. I mean, I got hit on the top of the head, and so I have a TBI here. And when I got, scanned by Dr. Amen, he sat down in front of me and was like, "You're impulsive." And I was like, "How do you know that?" But it was right on the impulsivity control of the brain. So, I mean, just knowing that made me just see people in a whole new way,
Yeah. Totally. I mean, the brain is it's so interesting. When you think of who you are and feeling like you have you fully know yourself and you control yourself and you control every decision that you make. And then when you go through an experience like maybe what you've learned through Dr. Amen or the experience I went through with actual physical issue in my brain, and then the chemicals that they sent through, you come to realize that you are a product of the biology of your brain. As weird as that sounds, you are yourself, yes, but the biology and the chemistry of your brain is ultimately determining how you feel and how you are able to behave and how you respond to things and how you
Mhm.
think.
Yes.
And even experimenting with, you don't have to go as far as using a drug. You can even use something like a dopamine booster, like
Mhm.
L-tyrosine, right? Or something for serotonin, like tryptophan. And you
Mhm.
can notice how it changes how you feel in the
Yeah.
moment. And something that might normally anger you, you might be calm about if you've got more serotonin, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it just goes to show how these neurotransmitters, these chemicals,
Yeah.
can significantly shift how you perceive life, how you behave,
Yes.
and the actions you take.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why I always say mind, body, soul. It's like you have to address all three things, your energy, your physical body, and your mental health in order to optimize, I feel like, this life, right? It's like you have to become aligned in all things to be able to reach your highest potential because it factors in so much with the way you think, feel, and act. So, yes, I mean, incredible. So you had the brain tumor, 16 years old, you got it taken out. Now what? What happens in your life? What led you down this path of longevity and actually developing your own stuff? Like, we're going to get into it today. So,
Yeah, yeah. So after the surgery, it was a long period of recovery, about a year, in terms of just getting my brain back to where it was. I had to take anti-seizure medication. There was inflammation from where they did the
mm,
surgery,
mhm,
and I also couldn't play any contact sports. And so I went from being social with friends and playing on the football team to like being a lot more introverted and to myself, and started writing journal entries and poetry and just
mhm,
like reflecting on my life and what I had been through. And so it was a period of a lot of self growth. It
mhm.
also made me, for the first time, think of health in a very different way. Because prior to that, as I mentioned, I read Men's Health magazine. It was purely superficial. Like, I wanted to be attractive to the girls in school, so I
Mhm.
started to weightlift,
Mhm.
and so that, like, playing sports well and looking attractive, that's the superficial side of health that I was into. But after the brain tumor, I realized that health is far, far more profound than that. And
Mhm.
it's really about the optimization of our biology so that we can perform our best and experience the world in the best way possible, as you
Mhm.
alluded to, but also to avoid any sort of disease, any
Yeah,
illness.
yeah.
And so I started to get into longevity, but I didn't know it by the name back then. The way I
Mhm.
looked at it was, how can I prevent myself from ever being in a situation like this ever again, where I'm sitting on a hospital bed wondering if I will wake up alive the next day or not.
Mm.
And so I never wanted to have to go through that if I could do anything about it, at least until my
Mhm.
final day, very, very far into the future. And so I started to look into what are the risk factors for disease. For Started with a brain tumor, but then
Mhm.
worked my way into other chronic illnesses. And it was many years later, it was about a decade later, that I started to get curious about this.
Mhm.
And eventually I came across a scientific paper about almost a dozen years ago now, called The Hallmarks of Aging. So I found this on
Yeah.
PubMed, and PubMed,
Mhm.
is where all the scientific papers are. And I like to go to the researchers, the primary sources, rather
Mhm.
than the men's health magazines now
Yes.
in my middle age. And this paper, called The Hallmarks of Aging, identified at the time 9 biological causes, essentially, of the aging process.
Mhm.
Now it's been increased to 12.
Mhm.
But I came to realize at that point, it was like an epiphany moment, that aging, number one, is the number one risk factor for disease, for
Mhm.
chronic illness, for cancer, heart disease, neurodegeneration like dementia and
Mhm.
Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I mean, you go down the list: glaucoma, sarcopenia, all of these things. The number one risk factor, more so than cigarettes cause lung cancer, aging does, by 3 times more.
Mm.
So that was the first realization, is that aging is my worst enemy when it comes to the risk for disease.
Mhm.
Then the second question was, well, if there are these 9, now 12 hallmarks or mechanisms of aging, is there anything I can do to slow down their progression? And
Mhm.
that's when I turned to the researchers, and I started to go to biotech events, and then the labs of well-known researchers like Dr. David Sinclair and Dr. George Church at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Matt Kaberlein, who is a graduate of MIT's program. So really renowned biogerontologists, people who study aging, the biology of aging, and geneticists, and so on. And ultimately, I came to realize that number one, the idea that I presented them with actually had a lot of potential, which was, why don't we target all of these hallmarks of aging simultaneously, rather than what the scientists are doing in their labs, where they focus on only one or maybe two of the hallmarks at a time, because they specialize in becoming experts on a specific hallmark.
Right.
But I was thinking very practically, like, I want to improve my health today beyond what I'm doing with exercise and sleep and stress reduction and eating healthy.
Yes.
So that was the first question, is can we address all of them at once? And the answer was yes. That is hypothetically the most powerful way to be able to address aging, is to target all of the hallmarks at once. And then the second question was, are natural molecules powerful enough to address these causes of aging? And the answer to that was yes, there's adequate research to show that natural molecules can have a favorable effect on these hallmarks of aging. So you've got something here, at least conceptually. And that was the validation I needed to say, okay, I want to create a formula that's going to directly impact these hallmarks of aging to the best of our ability with natural ingredients. And that's when the idea for my company was born.
Gotcha. Wow. Incredible. So first question, for those who do not know, what are the 12 hallmarks of aging?
Oh, wow. Okay. I feel like I'm being tested here. So the first one is very commonly known. You hear about it all the time in the health world. I'd say while it is very impactful, I think that the health and wellness world overestimates the significance of this relative to all of the others. In other words, the other ones are not really talked about enough relative to this one. And that's mitochondrial function or mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yeah.
So as we age, our mitochondria, the power plants of our cells, don't make as much energy as they used to. You have fewer of them. And when a cell doesn't have adequate energy, it doesn't perform its job well. And that's not just energy the way we think of energy, like a caffeine high or the ability to go for a run or something. It's, our liver cells need energy to detoxify. Our neurons need energy to actually fire and for us to think, right? So every cell performs a function, and you need that energy. And mitochondria, as you have fewer and they don't perform as well, that's one of the hallmarks. I can go through the other ones a little quicker. So second is cellular senescence. These are like zombie cells that accumulate and can secrete inflammatory markers as we age. Next is loss of proteostasis. So this is, our DNA exists for the sake of producing proteins. And those proteins need to get folded in a certain way. Imagine like origami. And if it's not folded in the right way, it's not actually going to perform its function. It will not dock onto a protein receptor site properly. So as we age, it's not folding properly, and therefore the proteins are not doing their jobs. Next is altered intracellular communication. So the cells communicate with each other. It's like this vast quantum network, our bodies. And so the proteins are part of how that communication takes place. And so if they're not docking properly, if a cell is saying, hey, I'm inflamed, and it's letting out inflammatory molecules, but the rest of the body's not responding to that because it's not communicating well, that inflammation is going to proliferate, and it's going to continually send out these signals that cause more inflammation, and the body's not able to handle it. So that's altered intracellular communication. After that is genomic instability. So that's basically DNA damage. There are many ways our DNA gets damaged. Being out in ultraviolet light for too long, that causes damage to the DNA. Smoking cigarettes, or even metabolism, like even eating food. We have to eat food, but even that process is a heavy process on our body, and it causes DNA damage. The good thing is our body has ways to repair the DNA damage, but as we age, it's not as effective at repairing that DNA damage. And that's why things like the risk for cancer increases as we get much older, is because of mutations that can take place. After that is epigenetics, or the epigenetic alterations. So you are hearing more and more about this idea called the epigenome. And related to the epigenome is a even more commonly heard term in the wellness world, which is methylation. And so methylation is the process where if you methylate a DNA site, you're basically like wrapping it around the spindle so that it can't be read. So you're like hiding that part of the DNA. And so if you demethylate, you're exposing it. And so you need to be able to methylate and demethylate so that the body can respond to the environment and different signals and behave optimally. And so as we age, the epigenome is kind of just drifting away from its youthful state. And so cells in the whole body starts to behave as if it's older and not as well as it would when it's younger. After that is telomere shortening. So telomeres are the protective end caps of our chromosomes. They protect the DNA, and think of them as almost like the caps of your shoelaces. If you step on those caps enough, they disappear, and now your shoelaces fray. And imagine with DNA, the same thing happens, and that is a major problem. Every time there's a cellular division, the telomeres get a little bit shorter. After that is deregulated nutrient sensing. So this is for the body to sense nutrients in our body and then behave accordingly. So for example, if you've heard of mTOR or AMP kinase, so like mTOR is a growth signal, that's a nutrient signal. AMP kinase is a cellular starvation signal, which is actually good to have that activated from exercise or fasting. So as we age, our body can't sense these as well. After that is stem cell exhaustion. This is another very commonly known one. So our stem cells are able to produce replicas of our cells. And as we get older, we have fewer of the stem cells and they don't make perfect replicas anymore. And that's why you hear about people getting like stem cell therapies and so on. And controversial in terms of the use cases for them, at least in terms of medical standards, but some are more proven than others, I guess is my point. But that's the value of stem cells, is they can help to produce new replicas of our cells. After that is disabled macroautophagy or disabled autophagy. So this is the ability for the cell to kind of digest cells within the body. So if a cell is getting old and it's not behaving properly, it's not functioning well, the body can, largely the immune system can go and notice that cell is not functioning well, and then digest it, essentially take all of the pieces, the amino acids, the fats, and recycle them for new cells or other purposes in the body. Number 11, we're almost done, is inflammaging. So this is chronic inflammation that it starts out as a whisper when we're young, but as we get older, it becomes a hum and then eventually a very loud noise. It's something that just builds upon itself. And then finally, it's microbiome dysbiosis for number 12. And so our microbiome, you've got, I believe there's maybe 11 or 12 gut organ axes. Like you hear about the gut brain axis, but there's the gut skin axis, there's the gut heart axis, the gut liver axis, all of these axes, which means that the gut does have an impact on all of these other organs. And all of these 12 hallmarks interact with each other. When something goes awry, the others kind of feel the reverberating effects. And so my perspective when I started the company was, well, in that case, why not target all of them? Because arguably by doing all of them all at once, you're going to be able to offset reverberating effects, but you're also going to have a more profound impact on the aging process by making sure all of them are being impacted at once.
Yeah. Well, thank you for breaking all that down. It's so funny as you were talking, I'm in my head, it's like popping up these different supplements and different things that you can do per one hallmark. It's like, there's a company that has a senescent cell, destroyer, like that you can take once a month. There's MitoPure, urolithin A to help support your mitochondria. There's all these little like this for this. But you're saying that you've developed a product that hits all 12 hallmarks.
That's correct.
And it's natural. It's not like created. Like, I mean, I feel like big pharma, they'll take something natural, change it by one molecule so they can patent it and make money off of it. But you're saying that this is pretty much like a natural molecule that, is not being chemically altered, right?
It's not being, so it's actually a combination of ingredients. So there's 12 ingredients in the formula. We filed for patents on this formula all the way back in 2020. And it was designed being very aware of the different biopathways that each of the ingredients are impacting. And by doing that, we were careful not to overactivate a pathway or activate conflicting pathways. So we really took a very methodical approach to this with our team of advisors from Harvard Medical School, MIT, and the Salk Institute. So there were 7 MDs and scientists involved in the review of scientific literature and ultimately the creation of this formula. So it's not like most supplement companies who arguably they hear about a trending ingredient or some research about ingredient X and ingredient Y, and they say, let's put it together, let's put a nice label around it, let's cite the research, say we're scientific, and then sell it.
Right. Yeah.
We are actually a team of scientists. We are biotech at our core. And so every ingredient, yes, it is natural, but the way we designed it was the first in the world, as far as we are aware of, to target all of these hallmarks at the same time. And we've gone on to do a number of scientific studies to validate our product, everything from mechanistic studies, so looking at these specific hallmarks of aging. And for some of them, we have done studies and shown, at least in an in vitro environment, so a cellular environment, that we have a favorable effect on these hallmarks. Now, that doesn't guarantee that we have the favorable effect inside of the body, but it is indicative of a good chance that perhaps we do, which then leads us to graduating to the next degree of sophistication, which is an animal lifespan study. This is the gold standard in the longevity world because humans live too long to do a longevity study on humans. So we have to do it in animals. And mice are kind of the standard for that. And we did a study where we were able to show when mice took our product compared to a control where they didn't take our product, we were able to extend aged mouse lifespan by more than 18%, which is very significant.
Wow. Okay.
And we also did a positive control in that same study where mice were injected with a combination of these prescription R&D drugs that are known to extend lifespan. In other words, that's done by scientists sometimes to see, relative to something we know works and relative to doing nothing at all, does the Novos formula, how does it compare to these? And we matched the almost statistically perfect, matched the performance of this injection of a senolytic combination. You mentioned senolytics before. It's a senolytic combination, but hardcore R&D level research, not approved for human use. Now, again, these are mice. So we can't say definitively that this is going to work in humans, but we're building the credibility, the amount of evidence that what we have built is having a unique effect on biology, at least in a living organism. So what comes after that? After that comes human studies. And there's all different standards for human studies. We chose to comply with the highest standard, which is a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial, and to do it at a university, not at a contract research organization, a CRO.
Okay. Yes.
So because there's something to be said about going to a university where the researcher's reputation, the academic's reputation is everything, as opposed to CRO where, well, you're paying a corporation to run a study for you. Not to say that they don't necessarily run legit studies, but we just feel like academia is at the highest level of scientific standards.
Yes. Yes. Gotcha. Wow. Incredible. So you made it all the way to do that. Have you guys gotten results from that human study, top level human study?
Yes, we have. So like, as I'm telling you now, these are confidential.
They do not want this conversation happening, so we're doing it live. Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Artis. I want to personally invite you to something very different. An event called Uncensored with Elisabeth Carson, the banned conversation they don't want you to hear. This is not a typical health talk. This is a live, unfiltered conversation where we will speak openly about topics that are often avoided or shut down. Zero scripts, zero restrictions, just real information and real answers. If you've ever felt like you're not getting the full picture, this event is for you. We're hosting 3 events live in 3 different cities, beginning in Dallas, May 16th, then in Las Vegas, August 8th. Yes, it will be hot. And Miami, December 5th. In-person seating is extremely limited. We are only inviting 100 people per event, and those seats will sell out fast. If you cannot attend in person, don't worry though, because you can join us virtually from anywhere. And every attendee will receive exclusive perks. And if you join us in person, you'll also receive a special gift bag with exclusive items. It will only be seen by those who purchase a ticket and attend live. Get your tickets now at ElisabethUnlimited.com elizabethunlimited.com/uncensored. That's elizabethunlimited.com/uncensored. Join me and Elisabeth Carson for an unforgettable experience. I will see you at Uncensored.
Because we haven't published, but by the time this gets published, they will be public.
Uh-huh.
And so we chose to look at cardiovascular health. Why
Okay.
did we look at cardiovascular health? It's because this is one of the first systems to decline as we age. It's
Yeah.
also the number one killer in the world. I believe about double the rate of cancer deaths come from cardiovascular disease. So when it comes to aging, it's very relevant. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not making any sort of disease claims like reducing risk of disease or coping with disease and so on. That's against FDA policy. I'm not making any of those types of claims. But I'm just setting the stage for why cardiovascular health is actually something relevant for us to be looking at from the perspective of longevity. So we believe we have impacts beyond just cardiovascular health because of this hallmarks of aging approach we take. But this was a good place to start where we could measure and see if we had a favorable effect. So the study had 61 participants. As I mentioned, it was a placebo-controlled study. It was double-blinded and randomized. So the researchers themselves didn't know who got our product and who got the placebo. The placebo was identically flavored to our product, and the product that they got was literally the exact formula that you buy off of our website or off of the shelf. So no differences, including sweeteners and so on. Stevia for anyone who cares. So so they took the product. So before they started taking the product, actually, they were measured for a number of different things, blood biomarkers, but then most importantly, we looked at what's called functional biomarkers. So this is a key distinction. These are biomarkers of the function of the cardiovascular system. And that's important because a lot of people will look at biomarkers. Let's just say they get a blood lab test and they're looking at their LDL and their triglycerides and so on. And these are correlated to disease risk and progression of disease and so on. And so you want to keep them in range. But why do you want to keep them in range? You want to keep them in range because ultimately, if you have them out of range for too long, function starts to change. So that's what I'm getting at. When you look at functional biomarkers, you're actually seeing the performance of the organ. So we looked at vascular metrics for these functional markers. We looked at, first and foremost, the primary endpoint for the study was flow-mediated dilation. This is the ability for the blood vessels to dilate. And as we age, we're less able to dilate our blood vessels. So this is for blood to be able to flow to the degree that the body needs that blood to flow. And if it can't dilate well, that means you're not getting as much blood flowing as is ideal. And so that was the first biomarker. The second biomarker was something called pulse wave velocity. This measures the flexibility of the blood vessels. So you want your blood vessels to be as flexible as possible, right? As opposed to them stiffening over time.
Yes.
Third is blood pressure. So we looked at systolic and diastolic. Systolic is the most important one for us to be focused on when it comes to health. So the study, after that initial measurement, people took the placebo or our product. At 2 hours, they were measured for all of these things. And then they were sent home and they took the product for 6 months and they came back again. So after 2 hours, we saw favorable shifts in flow-mediated dilation. So within just 2 hours, there were already benefits.
Wow.
And those benefits were, yes, like statistically significant. Everything that I'm sharing now, statistical significance beyond the placebo for improvements in FMD. And what's critical is that those FMD, blood flow circulation markers, remained elevated, improved at the 6-month mark. Now, at the 6-month mark, the people went in fasted. So they went almost a full day without having taken our product. And the results were still neck and neck with what it was at the 2-hour mark, which goes to show people did not develop a tolerance. And even after about 24 hours, they're still experiencing the benefit to that functional marker of FMD within this study. So how does that compare to other things? And FMD, I haven't mentioned this yet, but not only is it circulation, another keyword is endothelial function. So the endothelium is what this is measuring. So Novo's core in this study improved FMD on average by 2.9%. That is very significant. If we compare that to resistance training for healthy people, it's studies have found up to 2.1% improvement. For dietary nitrates like beetroot, a lot of people take beetroot specifically for this, like for improving nitric oxide signaling, which is literally for the sake of this endothelial function. 1.6% compared to our 2.9%.
Wow.
Mediterranean diet, 1.3%. Aerobic exercise, 1.2% in healthy people. Weight loss of 22 pounds, 1.1% was the average change. And again, we were 2.9%. And then omega-3 fatty acids, 0.9%, we were 2.9%.
Wow.
So significantly outperformed most of the best studied interventions out there when it comes to flow mediated dilation in healthy populations. Then blood vessel flexibility. So pulse wave velocity, you want to decrease the velocity, because if it's fast, it means that it's stiff. And if it's slow, that means it's flexible. So this is a measure of blood vessel flexibility. We decreased it on average by 1.18 meters per second. Compare that to the DASH diet. It's like a heart health diet program that's been very well studied. That's 1.07. Magnesium is 1.0 compared to our 1.18. Omega-3, 0.93. Weight loss of greater than 10% of body weight reduces it by 0.8. High intensity interval training, HIIT training, reduces it by 0.62. Dietary nitrate, again, like beetroot, 0.59, and Mediterranean diet by 0. So we were 1.18 compared to all of these. All of the references for this we can share with you, or they'll be on our website as well in case anyone is curious of which studies we're comparing this to. But we had scientists that did the research to do the comparison. And then finally, systolic blood pressure. So per FDA standards, it's important for me to say that this is for blood pressures already in normal range. This is not for people with elevated blood pressures. This is people in normal range, which is important because if your audience is already healthy, this goes to show that this can potentially further improve a healthy person's health. So Novo's core, the improvement in systolic was 6.1. That's compared to beetroot and nitrates, which was 4.4. So that's about 70% as effective as what we were. High intensity interval training, 3.9 versus our 6.1. Resistance training, 2.8. Magnesium, 2.7. Quercetin, which is a longevity quote unquote ingredient, 2.5. Weight loss programs, 2.4. Omega-3, 2.3. Potassium supplementation, 2.1. And coffee, minus 2.4. In other words, it increased systolic blood pressure a little bit from coffee. So that's all compared again to our 6.1. So what's really interesting is we also then did blood biomarkers, and we looked at LDL cholesterol, for example. That didn't change in the study, which is important because it goes to show that this is not being mediated by cholesterol changes or these metabolic markers. It's actually being improved by having some other type of pronounced effect on the biology of these blood vessels, their ability to function. And the fact that we performed as well as we did, not for just one of these or not just two of these, but these three critical markers, we're outperforming in some cases things like high intensity interval training and significant weight loss and supplements like beetroot and nitrates. I think that says a lot. And I think it says a lot that the approach that we took designing this formula, which was not designed specifically for cardiovascular health. I could talk about the skin health benefits our product also provides. I can talk about the cognitive effects that the product is reported to have. The fact that we are having these effects, I think, is starting to validate the initial hypothesis that by targeting the 12 hallmarks of aging, we can have a profound impact, hypothetically, not just on the cardiovascular system, but perhaps across the body. And that is what future research is looking to uncover.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it would, if you're hitting all the 12 hallmarks And that is responsible, the 12 hallmarks, for different functions in the body. I mean, you would think that it helps every single function in the body, right? I mean, all things. I mean,
Hypothetically, I mean, I can't go as far as saying any of that, like in terms of,
I can see it.
again, like just regulations and so on. But it requires scientific research to be able to prove these things out. But hypothetically, we would, by targeting these hallmarks, we would be having positive effects, perhaps, on organs and tissues throughout the body, not simply the cardiovascular system. But the cardiovascular system is what supplies all of the nutrients, the oxygen that our organs need to function in the first place. And it's one of the first to go. So that in and of itself, I think, is incredibly valuable, even if it stopped there. But I feel like, based on the way we designed it, there's a good chance it goes well beyond that. And we've done like a preliminary study, for example, measuring skin firmness using a device called an indentometer. It was a small study. It was preliminary, really just for exploratory purposes. So it's not large enough, and it wasn't placebo controlled. But we did find positive effects, significant positive effects in terms of the average firmness of the facial cheek. So, and that's because we have ingredients that have been shown in previous studies, like oral hyaluronic acid and glycine, which is a building block of collagen, and a few other ingredients that have been studied and found to have favorable effects on the skin. But they can have favorable effects on the aging process for other reasons as well, and that's why we included them. So the point is that we have preliminary evidence pointing to the possibility of having positive effects on other organs, including the skin, and even like brain or cognition health properties, things like L-theanine, which we all know can help with focus. Right. And a microdose of lithium, which is typically found in natural spring waters and in wild animals and fish, for example. And we don't get high levels of it anymore. And so this is a 1 milligram, very, very small dosage. But there's a lot of research behind that. In fact, we have a scientific paper coming out about the microdose effects of microdose lithium. So there's all of these ingredients that I think it's fair to say it goes well beyond just the cardiovascular function.
Yes. Okay. So you just broke all that down for me. Thank you so much. I love to like nerd on this stuff. I'm watching all the functions inside my body, like the proteins. I love this. I love it. But for people, can you explain this in layman terms? How do you feel after taking your product? What happens? Like how do you feel? Like, let's put the body's functions to the side. How do you feel? Like, what does it do for your everyday, like, moving around?
Okay. So I'll talk about what I subjectively feel. Everyone is different, so I'm not speaking for everyone here.
Yes.
But what I have subjectively found was, number one, not having had enough magnesium in my diet. We have a large dose. It's in this around 75% of the daily value of magnesium in our product. So that I immediately found improved the quality of my sleep. I felt better rested the next day. I felt a little bit more calm, a little bit more energized as well.
Gotcha.
I think that
what type of magnesium do you use? What type of magnesium?
We use magnesium malate. And the reason we use the malate form is because malate has some animal studies reflecting its ability to extend lifespan in different animal species. And it can have effects on mitochondria and so on. So there's also magnesium glycinate, which is a popular one, but we have the glycine in our product that at a much higher dose than you would be getting from magnesium glycinate. So we compensate for that by having just the pure amino acid of glycine.
Gotcha.
I think the calmness and the clarity of mind for me also comes somewhat from the L-theanine, and as I mentioned before, the microdosed lithium. I've found just better energy overall. I think that's largely based on the improvements to my sleep that I just referenced. Improvements to skin health. So this is another anecdote, but my father, after he took the product for a few months when it was a prototype before it was released to the public, my mom, who had never in like 40 years of marriage ever complimented him on his skin, said to him, "Hey, Len, your skin, you have a really healthy complexion today." And we looked at each other, me and my dad, and we're like, is it the Novos formula? And then we had a lot of other people commenting the same. And I've noticed
Uh-huh.
it myself too. Like I'm 41, I'll be 42 in a couple of months. And
Uh-huh.
um, I've gotten compliments from people in person, like just saying, you have very healthy looking skin. I don't
Mhm.
really do that much
Mhm.
beyond the norm. I
Well, you look
moisturize.
28, so you're aging backwards here.
Thank you. Not quite, but thank you. So
So wait,
skin health is the other.
what's in your product that helps the mitochondria function better? Is there something specific?
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of things. So, for example, I mentioned the malate. Malate can have a positive effect on mitochondria.
Mhm, mhm,
Glycine can.
mhm, mhm,
Alpha ketoglutarate can.
mhm,
Fisetin, which can also serve as a senolytic, but it
mhm,
can also have a favorable effect um, on mitochondria.
mhm.
Pterostilbene. So
Mhm.
pterostilbene, many people may have heard of resveratrol,
Yes.
but resveratrol from red wine, the French paradox,
Mhm.
was a theory of why French people live so long. It's because they drink red wine. Proved to not be the case. But the issue with resveratrol is it's not well absorbed in the gut, and it has a very,
Mm.
very low half life in the blood.
Mhm.
Pterostilbene is like a close cousin of resveratrol. It just has a methyl group attached to it, so it's almost
Mhm.
identical, but it's absorbed. The oral bioavailability is much higher, and the
Mm.
half-life is significantly longer. And it's
Mhm.
been shown to have a number of favorable effects, including on the mitochondria.
Mhm. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Sorry. I was just curious. So you're basically saying that you have more endurance, better energy, clarity in the minds, more like clarity, calmer, more focus, and your skin is phenomenal. That's what you're saying?
I wouldn't go as far as saying phenomenal. You said it, not me. But um, yeah, overall, I think that kind of encapsulates it. And then there's the internal effects that
Mhm.
we have essentially shown in the placebo-controlled clinical trial, at
Mhm.
least for heart health or vascular system,
Yeah.
um, which it's, I think, fair to reason that that's happening in me as well based on the
Mhm.
study. And then the question is, what more is it actually doing beyond that? And so future
Mhm.
research will uncover that. But what I suggest to people is that, the younger you are and the more resilient and healthy you are, the less you will necessarily feel effects from the formula. And the
Yeah.
older you are, the more likely you're going to see and experience the effects just because of the process of aging.
Mhm.
And if you're deficient in magnesium versus if you've already supplemented with magnesium, like these things are
Mhm.
all going to play a
Right.
role. But for the sake of, number one, simplifying your routine to not have to
Yeah.
take magnesium and a stack of all of these other things, but
Yeah.
also to consider that this combination has been studied.
Mhm.
What you're taking at home, your stack, whatever that might be, if it
Mhm.
hasn't been studied as a combination, you don't know the exact effect because things can
Right.
counteract each other. Things
Yes.
can overactivate pathways. And so
Mhm.
that's why we're trying to do the work for you by studying it and bringing to you a product is unlike any other product in the market
Yeah.
with this validation, so that you can be confident that it is likely having these positive effects on you too, whether you feel it or not.
Or not. Right. So that leads me to my next question. So with something like this, would I be able to like cut out all the other stuff I'm taking and only take this, like all of the different vitamins and minerals? And I mean, my stack is pretty extensive.
So without looking at your exact stack, I couldn't go as far as saying yes, you could, and it would be irresponsible of me to say yes, everyone just take this product and and you're done, because
Yeah.
it's not the case. Like,
Uh-huh.
even though we outperformed omega-3 on multiple measures
Uh-huh.
for this specific metric, doesn't mean that we outperform it for other metrics. Also, we
Gotcha.
outperformed resistance training and HIIT training, but we didn't measure muscle growth, right?
Right.
So you still want to exercise. So I'm not
Yeah.
trying to state that like you take this and then you don't, all of your problems are solved. That's not the case. And so that applies to your supplements too, which is like
Yeah.
omega-3 has DHA, which is good for the brain as well. So I think
Mhm.
you should still take DHA. If you don't have
Mhm.
adequate vitamin D and vitamin K in your diet, maybe supplement with those. I
Yeah.
tend to think, if you want a very simple longevity routine, what I suggest to people is to consider getting a high quality multivitamin.
Mhm.
So brands like Pure Encapsulations and
Mhm.
Life Extension, they make some good multivitamins. Make sure you have it with a meal for the fat soluble ingredients. Make sure
Yes.
you get adequate vitamin D and vitamin K. Get omega-3. Take Novos Core. And then if you are weightlifting and stuff, just make sure you get adequate protein to be able to fuel your muscles. And now you are in the top 1% of people in terms of the healthiness of their routine. Now, if you wanted to stack other things in there, like for your own personal goals, then you got to consider it on a case-by-case basis. But from the perspective of longevity and general health, what I suggested, I think that's a very solid stack that is quite simple. One daily drink, which is what Novos Core is. It's a daily drink mix. You tear it open, it tastes good. You put it in your water. You have it with a meal. You swallow 1 or 2 multivitamin pills and 1 or 2 fish oil and 1 D+K supplement, and you're done.
Wow. Dang, that would simplify my whole life. So what's up? Can I have some? No, seriously. I mean, I love that you're so direct and honest too. Cause sometimes when I ask people that same question, they're like, yeah, throw away everything else. It's good. But no, I like that you're very, direct with your stuff, and you actually, the claims that you're making are backed, and so it's very, it just shows that you're not only a fan of your own stuff, but you're really doing the work to prove that your stuff is like good for this, this, and this. So no, it's great. It's phenomenal. So I appreciate all of the work that you're doing. And I was going to ask you, you took my question away. I was like, what is the longevity stack that people out there? Okay. So you already answered that one. So, okay. What about 3 tips? Because I know that you've been in this longevity space for a very long time. So just through all of your research, all of your work, what are 3 tips for people other than your stack that can extend life and make people have more energy and feel better?
So I'd say these are more lifestyle tips, but and what the first one I'm about to mention, people might roll their eyes and be like, yeah, we've heard this one before, but I want to emphasize how important it is, which is to not neglect your sleep. I think sleep is the cornerstone of health and longevity, and the reason isn't what might initially come to mind. So when you sleep well, not only do you feel better the next day, and not only does sleep then reduce the risk of different diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer, because your body is rebuilding itself, lymphatic drainage from the brain to clear out toxins from the brain, and so on. So not only is it directly impacting, it's indirectly impacting longevity, in the sense that studies have found that people who sleep well are less likely to cheat on their diet. They're more likely to maintain a healthy diet. People who sleep well are more likely to expend more energy in the form of workouts or moving around. Even just like, instead of sitting still, they might like get up from their seat more. They might like fidget more, and they burn more calories throughout the day. They're more physically active. Blood glucose levels. If you sleep well, blood glucose levels are actually lower. Like, in other words, if you go 2 days without good sleep, your blood glucose can resemble a pre-diabetic, even if you're not pre-diabetic. So there's all of these different effects that sleeping can have. And so I see it as the cornerstone. When you sleep well, it empowers you to then be able to do the other things that are important for longevity.
Yes.
So the second thing I would say to that point, what's good for longevity, is I would say on the nutrition side, for most people, it is eat fewer calories. For some of us, it's actually eat more calories. But for most people, it's eat fewer calories, and then make sure that those calories are whole foods. The Mediterranean diet is arguably the most well-studied diet for long-term health span and lifespan. So if we're going to talk about a longevity diet, I would say it is the Mediterranean diet. Now, there's different styles of Mediterranean. You can have a vegetarian or vegan Mediterranean diet. You can have a more meat-heavy Mediterranean diet. But the point is that there are some cornerstones of that diet that people should look into and try to integrate that into their diet and minimize processed foods and maximize the types of foods that are found in the Mediterranean diet. And then I guess maybe the next one would be like the psychology side of things, which includes stress management. It includes relationships. It includes purpose in life.
Yes.
Like, don't neglect that. Like, make sure that you take time to check in with yourself, that you, if maybe get into things like meditation or journaling or prayer, where you actually take this like mental inventory and the spiritual inventory of how you're actually feeling and be aware of it. And because as you kind of alluded to at the beginning of the discussion, there are different things that can trigger you, and it might be a subconscious thought or like a flash of a flash in the pan of a thought. Like it's just one thing, like a text message came in and you saw in the glimpse of an eye and you went on to do something else, and suddenly you're in a bad mood. You didn't realize it was that text message that put you in a bad mood. And so being more aware, self-aware, and being able to catch these things can go a long way. And ultimately the goal is to reduce stress, reduce cortisol, increase the feelings of connection and support, see life for what it actually is in the bigger picture, not get like caught up in the little micro issue that you're facing right now. And I think all of us, myself included, can really improve on that and learn from that.
Yes, I love everything that you just said and agree with you 1,000,000%. 1,000,000. And you know what? Just thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I can't wait to try your product. I mean, I'm just like over here, like, how can I get some? But guys, all the links will be in the description. I got to have you back on after I try your product for a couple months and see the difference that it's made for me. So definitely would love to have you back on here. Chris, where can people find you and what do you have coming up? Anything that we can, dive into?
So, so you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and a blog. It's all called Slow My Age, slowmyage.com. And then the company is Novos Labs. So novoslabs.com, also on all of the social networks as Novos Labs. What do I have coming up? Well, by the time this airs, it will have passed, but I'm going to be speaking at Stanford University this coming week. And then let's see, in June, I'll be speaking at a longevity conference in London. If anyone is in London, by the time this airs, they probably have adequate time to buy tickets. So those are the first things that come to mind right now.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'll have all your links, Chris, here. And again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's phenomenal. And I'm just going to rewatch this episode so I can nerd a little bit deeper on everything that you said. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate you. And yeah, keep going. I mean, wow. I really, honestly, I can't wait to try this. Like, you sold me.
Thank you, Elisabeth. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you and happy to come back on.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, this was another incredible episode of Unlimited with Elisabeth Carson and Chris Mirabile. I promise we're going to get to know each other and I will have that smooth by the next time that you're on with me. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and don't necessarily reflect those of the producers or affiliates. We do not guarantee the accuracy of the content. Please verify information and seek professional advice when needed. By listening, you agree not to hold us liable for any actions taken based on this content. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you enjoy the episodes ahead. Love unlimited, feel unlimited.
Before we wrap, if you're done living in loop mode, the addictions, the emotional swings, the stuck seasons, start with a tool that actually shifts your state. Go to unlimitedmeditationpack.com and download the free pack I created. It's 5 targeted meditations with theta entrainment frequencies that drop you into the zone where real subconscious reprogramming happens. These sessions calm your system, clear the old patterns, and open you up to better health, better connections, more clarity, and a life that finally moves. Start there. unlimitedmeditationpack.com.